Let's talk about American Tower. This is 118 pages. You know what? I want to mention something before we begin our conversation. We have, and it's important to remind everybody, made every attempt possible to contact American Tower to get a response. We have not heard back from the company. So just for those who want to know what American Tower has to say, we're waiting for a statement, and we'll bring it to you as soon as we've got it. But let's dig in to your research. 118 pages, Carson. Manifold reasons why you have concerns, about American Tower. What's number one in your mind?
Okay, well, number one in our mind is the emerging markets and frontier markets business. I mean, this is really the cornerstone of this great growth story the company tells.
Stock has tripled, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been screaming. And you know, when we have gone into the field, I mean, actually rolled up our sleeves and figured out what's going on in many of these emerging markets. And the reality is actually very different than what the company tells you. I mean, it's been able to create the illusion of growth in part through this de facto lending business where it's giving carriers money that they give right back to it and it books it as revenue. So that's one of the issues. But it's also the way that this business is working overseas, it's just not going to work as well as it has in the U.S. And investors don't understand that.
Well, you make a number of accusations and allegations, and it's a pretty scathing report. Did you call the company before you published this report and get any comment from them?
Well, we never told them, hey, we're muddy waters, we're about to publish a report. But it's safe to say that we have had perspective from the company on a number of these issues on multiple occasions.
Carson, in your research, you raise that very important word, or at least the possibility of fraud. You seem to have taken pains not to call American Tower a fraud, but to say there's potential for fraud. Why do you say that?
Well, what we did find is that in one transaction in which American Tower claimed to have spent $585 million buying towers in Brazil, the actual number that was paid for the towers was really only in the lower 300 range. So we've got a differential of about $250 million. Now, if the company knows that that was the case and has not disclosed that, that would be fraud. But if the company does not know that it didn't actually pay that much money for towers, then that would be something else.
Hang on a second. How could the company possibly not know what it paid?
Well, now you're asking me to speculate, and there are a number of possibilities. Look, you could have had a situation with employees at the local level. You might have had a situation with the sellers. It's really very difficult for us to say what actually did happen, but we know what did not happen.
Well, you also give us some pictures in the report of what this acquisition looks like, and I think we can pull it up. We have a picture. This is the $585.4 million transaction located in Brazil. Doesn't look like much of anything.
This is the company that appraised the transaction.
Yes, this is the company that appraised the transaction.
But
and it was located
citing,
at this address.
Yes.
You're citing Google Maps. Did you actually go there? Because Google Maps cannot... It's sometimes wrong.
We did not go to the appraiser's address. We came across that information, after we'd been going and looking at towers. So yeah, we use Google. I mean, surprisingly, Google Maps is quite robust in Brazil.
Okay, so hang on a second. It's possible that the company isn't aware of this discrepancy between the purchase price and the actual appraisal value of the wireless towers that it bought.
I can't speculate on what the company does and does not know. I mean, clearly, the company needs to investigate this. So, I mean, No,
the reason I raise it is because there are lots of reasons why you have concerns about American Tower. We'll get into a bunch of the others, but I want to draw a distinction between what you think might be going on and what you believe is definitely going on. When you talk, let's go back to the point that you made first about the company effectively lending money to its customers and then recovering, presumably, the interest in principal, what would be interest in principal, but recognizing it as revenue from wireless leases.
Correct.
You believe that that is going on?
Well, I don't think the company would dispute that. I mean, it's one of the way that those situations work is if the tower would be worth, say, $150,000 at market price, and based on what the carrier would lease it back for at a market rate, the carrier might say, hey, look, we want our balance sheet to look a little stronger. Give us $200. and American Tower would say, okay, we'll give you 200, but you need to give us back more money.
That's a very nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of situation, though. Does
Sure.
that pass muster with accountants?
Look, as far as as far as we know, and I actually I have a contact who's with the one of the accounting regulators, and several months ago I brought sale and leasebacks to his attention and asked, have you guys ever looked at this? Because in certain situations there is a lot of potential for abuse. I mean, at a certain point it becomes kind of a round trip of money. Now, as far as I know, there's nothing illegal about this, or should we say improper, but it's very misleading.
While we're on the subject of the transaction in Brazil, you cite a bunch of financial records on this transaction specifically, but didn't provide those. Are you planning to publish those?
There are links. There are links in the report. So I know it's people have to kind of dig into the footnotes and and kind of play around a little bit with those sites. But these financials are publicly available. So the financials that we cite first are for the company that AMT acquired. That's called Site Sharing NE. And it's a former parent company. So we obtained those financials and we combined them and we basically said, okay, well, this doesn't make sense because what AMT disclosed as its valuation metric, this company should have been producing a lot more EBITDA. That's the first set of records we looked at. But the other set were these Central Bank of Brazil records that show the inflows of all the money that American Tower has sent into the country. And so American Tower, around the time that the transaction closed, sent in $335 million. It had not sent in money for about 2 years. So, and the sellers are Brazilian. So in the best case, and this is, look, by the way, we have spoken with multiple sources who are familiar with this transaction, including 2 people who are, who understand the transaction as it closed. So, but putting that to the side for a moment, the best case scenario for American Tower would have been, okay, you paid some money offshore when the sellers are Brazilian and are probably trying to evade taxes. But we do not think that's the case, and the sources that we have made that very clear that this was a $300-something million deal.
Is it possible that this discrepancy, the $250 million, is missing?
Missing is, missing is the word I would use.
I mean, missing from accounting records is one thing. Missing, as in somebody else has it, is something else entirely.
It's possible, certainly.